Alright, working on the LS swapped S197 Mustang again here. So what I've been working on is I moved the AC dryer out of the way, and I'm working on getting the clutch line hooked up on this end to the master cylinder. So it hooks up right, really hard to see, but right there, there's like a quick connect fitting. You pop a C-clip out, the original clutch line pulls out. The original clutch line is plastic. This is it right here. So it's kind of weird, definitely not going to work for what I needed to, but it has these quick connect fittings on the end. So what I did was I bought a regular clutch line. This is 36 inches, so 3 feet. This is a 3AN fitting, goes to the master cylinder, T56 master cylinder that's in the car already. This end is going to go up to the master cylinder, and what we've got going on here is we've got this fitting right here, which you can buy online. So it's basically the same quick connect that's on the factory Ford clutch line, and a 4AN fitting on this side. And then it goes into a 4AN to 3AN reducer, the black thing, and then the 3AN clutch line hooks to it, and then this will run down and go to the 3AN hookup on the slave cylinder that's on the transmission right now. So I'm going to get this end hooked up, let this end just hang down. I'm going to clean up some other stuff, get our battery relocated to the trunk, make sure it runs. As soon as it runs with everything that's been changed, we're going to put it in the lift, we're going to put the clutch in and bleed the clutch line, and then we can put the drive shaft in. So the clutch line is in on this side, whether you can see, well, can't really see it, but that's it right there. And now I worked on cleaning up some wiring. So we got our O2 sensor on this side, our coil wires, they all run up nice and neat up here. On the other side, started working on these coil wires and O2 sensor wires. So here's our O2 sensor wires. These have to get spliced back onto here because they got cut off and the engine got pulled out of the other truck. But this is the coil wire. They're going to get all tied up nicely up here. Probably going to have to make some sort of heat shield to go in here to protect these wires. But that's that. So I'm going to stop for today. So working on the LS Swap Mustang again here. I've got stuff just temporarily wired up, so all this wiring's done. We got the accessory wire right here, just tapped into a fuse for that fuse panel. Starter wires ran inside. This is our main positive, this is our main negative. Just going to a battery on the floor right here, just to crank it up. Eventually that battery's gonna be in the trunk. So right now, I'm gonna get all this in, turn the key, start it up. All right, so I was trying to get the thing started. We were running into a problem where every time I would start the car, it would jump immediately up to like 2,500 RPM, and then it would start cutting spark, and the throttle by wire would stop working. So I think what was happening is that thing has a massive vacuum leak somewhere. I only had half the bolts in it because I'm missing the bolts. It doesn't have new gaskets on it. It's got that weird adapter I made on it. Overall, I just wasn't happy with the way that intake was working out. I didn't think the truck one would fit in the car, but I just put the truck intake on. It does barely touch the firewall there, so the firewall is going to have to get pushed in just a tiny bit there, but everything else clears. There's plenty of room on the back by the AC lines and the heater core lines and everything. So this has new gaskets. It is all the way on the engine. All the bolts are in. I got a returnless fuel rail for it, so that's already hooked up. I had to change it straight out for a 90 right here, but it's the same size fuel fitting, same injectors. Obviously you didn't have to do all that weird stuff to fit them because of the truck injectors. So everything is hooked up. I have everything on except for the throttle body, but it's getting dark out and I'm going to work on it again next time. We're going to get it started up. I don't think it'll have any problems after that, and we'll see what it does. Alrighty, so got everything switched over back to the truck intake manifold, got everything plugged in, throttle body's on, everything's on. Just got the battery hooked up. So now going to get working on, well, we're going to see if it cranks up. It should crank up, everything should work, and that's what we're going to do next. Alright, so what's going on here is we got the battery temporarily in the passenger floor. We got this blue wire, runs back to the fuel pump, so this is our fuel pump on, just touch at the positive. We have our crank wire, this goes to the crank on the starter. This is all temporary, none of this is staying, this is just to get the car moving. So we have it hooked to the ignition for the main power on and off. So if I turn the ignition on, it's gonna start beeping at me, but if we turn the ignition on, everything turns on. So we take our fuel pump wire, hear the fuel pump come on back there. It sounds bad because it's just deadheading against nothing. And if we take our crank wire and just touch it, she fires right up. Alrighty, so working on the LS swapped Mustang again. Just got the drive shaft test fitted in. Ran into a problem. I went to put it in and the drive shaft wouldn't slide in the transmission far enough, and I actually couldn't physically get it in. And I thought somehow the drive shaft accidentally got made too long, but that's actually not the case. What happened was the CD009 has this dust guard on the back of here, and the U-joint on the new drive shaft is much bigger than the old one because it's stronger. And what happened was it was hitting this dust cover, and this dust cover is just pressed in. So if you press that out, now you can see it's engaged, but there's still room there. It goes all the way down. I have just one bolt stuck in it, but it's bolted to the flange. Everything's good here. So now I'm gonna pull it out. Got the transmission, put the flywheel on the engine, put the clutch in, bleed the clutch lines, and put everything back together. Alrighty, so got the transmission pulled out here. Went and cleaned up all the crank signal wiring, put it in loom just so it's not, you know, open wires hanging down here. I have to find the bell housing bolts because the ones I were using were not the bell housing bolts. They're way too long. They were just for temporary, so I think I'm gonna run to Ace, go pick up some bolts for that, unless I can find them. And then in the meantime, get the flywheel put on this engine here. Alright, so this is what we have. This is what came with the Collins adapters kit. So we have the flywheel right here, so we're going to get that put on. We have our clutch and our pressure plate bolts, clutch alignment tool, all that. So we're going to go ahead, get the flywheel on, get the clutch on, and then run to Ace, go get the bell housing bolts, and then should be able to put the whole transmission back in and everything should be connected, put the drive shaft in, and we'll be ready to move it under its own power. Alright, so clutch is on, our flywheel's on, clutch is on, pressure plate's on. Don't forget, put the pilot bearing in the crank. And now I'm ready to lift this up and put the transmission back on. Alright, so I got everything together here with just a couple bolts stuck in it, but got all the pins in, got everything up together. It was a major pain. What I ended up having to do was take the bell housing off the transmission because of clearance here, put the bell housing on the engine, and then slide the transmission and put these bolts from the transmission into the bell housing. So, but I got 3 bolts in now. Gonna go around, put them all in, and then put the transmission mount on, then put the drive shaft in, and it should be ready to test. Alrighty, drive shaft's in, transmission's in, clutch is in, everything's in underneath the car. I'm getting pretty excited now. We're about to start it up and drive it off the lift. Cooling system is not done yet. There's no cooling in it, but should be able to start it, drive it off the lift to somewhere to work on finally instead of having to push this thing around everywhere. So we'll see how that goes.